6 months ago, if you'd said I was heading on a 7,000 plus kilometre motorbike trip, unsupported, through the centre of Australia, I would have replied, "What drugs you smoking?" At the time, I didn't own a motorbike. I didn't have a motorbike licence, nor did I have a lot of experience on a motorbike. But I was drawn to the idea of adventure and getting out of the office where I'd spent so much of my life in front of a computer. I wanted to get out and see Australia, and I couldn't think of a better way of doing it than on the back of a motorbike. The person I have to blame and thank for planting this seed is this bloke right here, John Kempton. He told me he was planning a trip to the Rock and back, and immediately I thought, you know what? That's a trip I'd like to do. A simple question to my wife. What do you think if I bought a motorbike? Was answered with, yeah, if you want one. 2 weeks later, I had a motorbike. This is the story of the adventure that had a greater impact on me than I could ever imagine. And of course, it covers a whole lot of fun we had in 21 days. Is this a bad omen for this trip? The first scene I want to film and the wind blows the tripod over. Take 2 and we're underway. The plan for this trip is to spend as much time travelling on the back roads, the dirt roads, the roads less travelled. We're starting in Torquay, working our way down the Great Ocean Road to Port Fairy, through to Robe, Victor Harbour. These are areas I've never been to before. Well, been to Robe a number of times, but anything north of Victor Harbour in South Australia, haven't been there. So we're going through Burra, Flinders Ranges, Maree, up the Oodidata Track, William Creek, Mount Dare, through to Fink, then on through to Ayres Rock, and then King Canyon, and then to Alice Springs. The route on the way home is going to be different, but I'll get to that.
We're only 5 minutes into the trip and we've already had one breakdown.
Batteries. It's batteries or this?
With Torquay being my hometown, the Anglesey Heath and the areas surrounding Torquay I know quite well. But I hadn't ridden the DRZ with 40 kilos of luggage on the back down these tracks. And we'd had a little bit of rain this morning. It just made it a little more interesting, but I really wanted to show John some of the tracks that I ride on a regular basis.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
If you look closely on the side of the road, you can see that a bushfire had been through here. It had only been 4 months prior to us travelling on this day. In fact, it was on Christmas Day that a fire ripped through two towns, Wye River and Separation Creek, destroying over 100 homes. You can just see how scary it would have been if you'd been caught on the Great Ocean Road. There's not too many ways of getting in and out here. But 4 months later, green growth is already sprouting. And now 3 years later, as I talk to you, it's amazing to see how it's recovered. While we sat at the traffic lights, I was explaining to John about the fire and the damage that it had caused. And I pointed out a house where every house around it had been destroyed, and this one house stood defiant as the fires raged around. You can imagine the surprise of the owners when they returned to see their house still standing and all their neighbours gone.
Rain coming, John?
Oh, the drizzle.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Yeah, that's like drizzle.
Drizzle.
Just keep it cool.
Not far out of Apollo Bay on the Great Ocean Road is this beach where there are a lot of man-made rock sculptures, although John did have a different take on it. He thought it should have been called Vandals Beach. He thought it was doing nature a great injustice.
Yeah, we only get one life, I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
We're doing it tough.
Maybe pulled in too. Followed him for a while.
First meal on the road.
Good chicks.
Really tough.
Recommend it. Holiday.
That rain that we spoke about earlier, we did get a few drops. There it is in the background. Just past Labour's Hill on the Great Ocean Road is a pretty cool track called the Old Coach Road. This is it right here. Sandy, muddy, hilly, windy. A nice test for a couple of guys on their first day with 40 kilos of luggage on their back.
This is what happens in a bit of sand. Not that easy. But great fun.
Good fun though, mate.
You're knackered.
Oh yeah. Ready for beer, I think.
We're going to earn it. I'm warm.
Well, we're not
John,
home yet.
I'm warm now.
Hey, yeah,
I'm warm. That's good.
Well, we'll go quicker than on the highway then. Down to 60 and 40 over there. So that's the old coach road done,
Oh,
right?
that was bloody awesome.
Oh, maybe coming up.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere. Evidence of an off. Times 3. Des doesn't look too happy. Sorry, Des.
We successfully made it to Port Fairy, arrived there reasonably late. Noticed that a bit of oil was leaking from my front forks. Did a bit of maintenance. Put up the tent. Found some beer and something to eat. And spent our first night on the road. First morning, first breakfast, and we get to test some of the equipment we bought. This jet boil, they're awesome. This egg container, let's see if it failed or won. Yeah, there was a few broken eggs. Still usable. 3 broken eggs. Not too bad. John said, "What do you expect? You drop your bike 3 times on the old coach road." He had a point. Might have been asking a little too much of the egg container. I mentioned earlier how much I like the jet boil. I got a little frying pan. I'm happy. I need a good breakfast every morning. 3 eggs on some bread. This does the job beautifully.
Call it that. I don't know what you call it. Tom's just eating straight out of the pan. Say hello, John.
Piece by piece, I take back, little by little, piece by piece, I take back, little by little, piece by piece.
All good?
19 litres. So I still had about 4 litres left.
Oh, good to know.
Keep talking good, keep talking sweet, keep sugar on, baby. I got you good, I got you sweet, got you on hold. My baby knows what I'm all about, what I'm all about. My baby knows what I'm all about.
Now this grabbed our attention. In Portland they clearly have ports, but I'd never seen a truck driven onto a large platform, then raised up to a certain angle to extricate all of the grain. That's a pretty serious angle, and from what we could see the driver was still in the truck.
Baby knows just how I'm feeling now. You got me locking, walking, stalking, rocking, freaking, I'm freewheeling for a while. My baby knows,
I love this part of South Australia. One of my favourite things with South Australia is the fact that you're allowed to drive or ride your motorbike along the beach. That's awesome. I can't think of a beach in Victoria where they allow that. So good on South Australia.
just for a while. 'Cause when you smile, got me on hold. My baby knows what I'm all about, what I'm all about. My baby knows what I'm all about, what I'm all about. Mama used to say,
local diving board.
Show us how it's done.
Tell you what, a lot of fun.
If you ever get the chance, you really have to visit the limestone coast in South Australia. Beachport and Robe are some of my favourite places to holiday. On this particular day, we didn't spend too long in Beachport, we just drove on through, but it's well worth stopping, having a good look around. Definitely go for a walk out on the pier. You can, if you have the right equipment, ride or drive from Beachport through the sand dunes all the way to Robe. We gave it a quick little try and decided that wasn't going to happen. In between Beachport and Robe is Woke Wine Cutting. This particular engineering feat has had me fascinated for a fair while. I've visited it a number of times. Murray McCourt and one of his staff cut this in order to drain a part of their farmland which was swamp. The project took them 3 years. It's about 1 kilometre long. At the bottom it's 3 metres in width. The deepest is about 30 metres, and they took out 276,000 cubic metres. It was constructed in 1957, completed in May 1960. If you are ever in the area, check it out. You have to see it with your own eyes to believe what they were able to do, just 2 men.
Through the sunrise I will thrive.